Thank you. Good afternoon. The Department of Justice has just filed our proposed remedy in the Microsoft case with the Federal District Court. We are asking the court to enter an order establishing a process under which Microsoft will be reorganized into two companies.
In a surprise move in September 2001, the Justice Department dropped its antitrust suit against Microsoft. It chose instead to seek conduct remedies to change the way Microsoft does business. Is government leveling the playing field in the software industry or interfering with free trade? Although the Constitution empowers Congress to promote a sound economy, arguments as to the extent of its involvement go back to the Founding Fathers.
One of the initial and most famous conflicts was over the creation of a national bank. Hamilton thought this was absolutely essential both to establish the fiscal credibility of this new national government. Jefferson disagreed on the basis that the power to create a bank was not explicitly given to Congress in the Constitution.
Government maintained a hands-off policy toward business and the economy for much of its early history, but gradually became more involved, first in breaking a trust and later in establishing the Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve was founded in 1913 as the central bank for the United States. They had been learning about monetary policy during World War I, and by early 1920s they had finally kind of learned about how to do open market operations. So there was a policy in place. In fact, economists blame the Fed for not acting rapidly right after the crash of 1929 to flood the market with liquidity. A lot of banks failed. In part, the Fed might be blamed for certainly the start of the Great Depression, making it worse.
And the Depression was so severe that Roosevelt had to intervene to enable the cities, particularly, and the states to take care of the millions that were unemployed.
We in America know that our own democratic institutions can be preserved and made to work. But in order to preserve them, we need to act together to meet the problems of the nation boldly.
He set up the WPA then and created what he thought was a big number of jobs, nearly 2 million new jobs.
Government began implementing programs to stimulate and regulate the economy.
The thing that the New Deal did was to change the balance of power in the economy by government intervention and change the power in the marketplace between consumers and producers, bankers and their customers and so on. This was the New Deal public philosophy, which then really dominated from the time of Roosevelt until, and indeed through Nixon. The real conservative came in with Reagan.
And the Reagan administration had its own agenda for regulatory reform. But looking back on it, the central thrust of the regulatory reform efforts of the Reagan administration were really aimed at easing the regulatory burdens on the private sector, on business.
When we came in 1981, the economy was in really bad shape. We had inflation way up in double digits. We had interest rates in double digits. We had low growth and high unemployment. And those things persisted for quite some time after we came into office with a pretty revolutionary economic program. After you've been there about 6 months, it's pretty hard to blame whatever's happening on your predecessor, even though they may have been responsible for a large part of it. So there we were, and the situation was not getting particularly much better. We'd enacted our economic program, and our political opponents began saying our economic program was the cause of all the problems.
You and I, as individuals, can, by borrowing, live beyond our means, but for only a limited period of time. Why then should we think that collectively, as a nation, we're not bound by that same limitation? Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
It was a very dark time. President Reagan's job approval rating went down to 38%, which is really very low for a president. Ultimately, of course, that all recovered, and he went on to serve 2 very successful terms.